Right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, a warm welcome to all of you for this much-awaited Social Media Day, Colombo, proudly hosted by Etisalat. Shall we all put our hands together at the very outset, give Etisalat a big round of applause? Come on. So thank you very much, Etisalat, for being the undisputed host of this particular event being held in Sri Lanka during the last couple of years. Once upon a time, a business as usual was quite good enough. But not anymore. Where we are going, good enough is quite dead and gone. In a world where everything is very much connected, everything is equally excellent, where performance is reaching perfection, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, there is only very much little space left for us to innovate in. That's none other than you. Today, you are the center point of this huge, raging tornado of change, fueled by digitalization, mobilization, augmentation, disintermediation, where the list goes on. Today, science fiction has become quite science fact. Think about the self-driven cars, the computers that can think and learn. The way we work will never be the same again. We would require a whole new skill set to encounter the challenges of the new world order. Winning and losing are now taking place faster than ever before. So, in this scenario, are you driving change or being driven by it? Ladies and gentlemen, how would you discover this whole set of new opportunities in the most transformational times in the human history? Today, the disruption has become the new normal. Everything that used to be dumb and disconnected is very much connected and way more intelligent. Cars, cities, ports, and even human bodies are now wired with all these sensors and will start communicating with each other. The fourth industrial revolution has already arrived. Ladies and gentlemen, 5G will be 200 times faster than 4G. By 2025, there will be 100 billion new connections the world over. By 2025, almost all the enterprises will be on cloud. They will start using cloud. And by 2025, there will be not gigabytes or terabytes. There will be new 180 to 200 ZB, zillion bytes of data available. So, not just that, the biggest thing, by 2025, the researchers say almost 15% of homes will have robots to assist us in our day-to-day activities. So, are you ready to incorporate this new change into all what you do? So, ladies and gentlemen, during the proceedings today, here at the Social Media Day, Colombo, hosted by Etisalat, we are ready to share with you all some industry insights, how some of the local industries have gone global, especially with the help of all these social media marvels. And not just that, the techniques, the methodologies that they have adopted into make their general, quite ordinary business units to some breathtaking, extraordinary business enterprises. So, ladies and gentlemen, to start the proceedings and to make the keynote address, would I call upon, once again, a veteran in the industry, the Chief Digital Officer of Hemas Holdings PLC, who leads IT, digital and innovation teams across Hemas Group to inculcate an innovative mindset, create the digital awareness, and deliver projects that enhances organizational values. He also leads Concept Ventures, the corporate VC of Hemas. He is also working with 4 ambitious startups determined to change the face of Sri Lanka's and region's healthcare landscape. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Chandima Kure.
Hi everyone, and good morning everyone. So it's great to be with all of you this morning to learn how modern day technologies help us lead a better life and drive, I think, our country towards a better time. So firstly, thank you Etisalat for hosting this event. I think this is not the first one. And inviting all of us to be here. So, I think there are many great speakers who have achieved a lot, who will be speaking and sharing their experience. So why are we here? Why are we talking about social media and other digital technologies? So before we start, I thought I'll share my point of view around what has changed and maybe what has not changed as well. So on one hand, what's changed is very evident, and I think we just heard a list of things. We have changed how we look for a product or service. We ask our friends in Facebook to have experience in this. If I'm buying a phone, is this the right one to buy? What's the best deal in town? That's how we get information today. We almost always check stuff online and then maybe go to the physical store, or we may even order it online and we expect it to be delivered next day, if not today. But we have also changed how we consume these products. We announce it to the world that we are going to purchase this. We announce it to the world that we have received this. We create videos out of how we unpack that and share our initial thoughts, surprises, disappointments, all of that. So sometimes we will say good things, but sometimes we may be complaining about our coffee while we are still having it, while we are still at the same cafe. And sometimes cafe knows about it, but in many cases they don't know about it. But I think tools are there for them to know. But I think still we are, as businesses, we are still evolving to really get engaged with our consumers. But it's not just about how we get a product or a service. How we find our lifetime partners also has changed. How we separate from them also has changed. And how we, I think, create business relationships also have changed. I think LinkedIn, Facebook, Tinder, all of these have become kind of part of the tool set that we use in making those interactions. But has everything changed? So 2 years ago, I had the opportunity of visiting Rio during Olympics time and watch Usain Bolt running the 100-meter finals. This is thanks to my daughter who convinced us to pretty much use all our savings to go there. So the time for the finals came, and they were announcing the names of each runner, and there's a tunnel and they come running to the track. But what kind of went through my mind, what kind of flashed in my mind, were the scenes from The Gladiator. It was the same. The sport was different, less bloody, but we were in an arena watching some people compete. So in some sense, I think we are not really changed. We still enjoy competition. We still root for our affiliations. I think in Sri Lankan rugby, it will be the schools. We still want to be recognized when we go to a place, pretty much like how entrance of each couple was announced in royal balls long time ago. We want things to be easier than yesterday, which I think has driven the innovation and inventions in our entire history. We still like things that are designed well, pretty much like I think our ancient kings and the workers had all these handcrafted, beautiful artifacts. We still appreciate that same level of craftsmanship, and I think Steve Jobs kind of brought it back to life in a digital sense. So deep inside, maybe our core has not changed. But I think sometimes we forget that when we create products, when we create services. I think we sometimes forget that the basic, the human, has not changed. So maybe one way to look at the world is to say, as humans, we are still the same. We still pretty much stay close to our basic instincts. But over time, we have created some tools that allow us to fulfill our needs differently. So same humans, different tools. So that's how I would look at it. So tools like social media, and you are the experts and not really our generation on this. I kind of learned about social media from my kids and even my wife, actually. So social media empowers us today. We can shout out to the world what we think about something, and the world can scream back at us as well. So it's a two-way communication. We can call out for changes that we think are better for us and for people around us, I think without really risking our lives, in most cases. Right? Whereas when you look at the past, I mean, people had to endure a lot of hardships to create change. So today we use these tools to uphold new age values. Respect and get the right place for women, how we treat members of LGBT community, believing that equal opportunity should be given to members of the society with a disability, a lot more conscious around sustainability of this planet, how we use these resources, how we use stuff made out of these resources, how we dispose that. So we are moving from a linear economy to a circular economy model. And social media allows us to have these discussions and mold the society one step at a time. A single voice is heard and may gather support, while a powerful voice can be shut down in the digital media. I think in Sri Lanka we have changed governments, but also we have flared communal unrest. And we also learned that governments can make decisions to shut down some of these channels, but we also learned there's something called VPN. So just like with any other powerful tool, from the dynamite that Alfred Nobel brought to the world, it all depends on how responsible we are in using these tools and technologies. So our behavior within social media and how we use technology as an individual is a reflection of us. We may be behind a keyboard or a screen or a mobile, but it's out there. And there are tools to scan through this, to identify, to see what we stand for. So whether we like it or not, governments will use this information, agencies will use this information, companies that we go for an interview will use this information, and we do use that information. We look at it. What's a LinkedIn profile? What do they say in Facebook? Do they tweet? We just Google the name and see, okay, I mean, what comes out? So the issues we take up, the kind of language we use, respect or insults we give out to others, will all be a reflection of ourselves. So I think since we have a young audience, I thought I'll share that part as well. So internet, social media, digital, I think we've been talking about this for some time. And interestingly, within the last, I think, 2 to 3 years, these technologies themselves have evolved. And as I think we just talked about, bringing more of yesteryear's science fiction to reality today. So I started the talk by saying we have changed how we look for products, buy products, use them. But that too has changed. Google search, which used to just give us a list of websites, today will give you an answer if you ask a question. Whether it's an exchange rate, a conversion from centigrade to Fahrenheit, the weather, the best products, whatever it may be. When you go to Amazon, it's almost as if it's your personal store. You see everything that you like, that you want, the next book that you want to read. It's almost as if they know you. And actually, probably they know. Netflix does the same. YouTube does the same. We don't go out looking for news anymore. Actually, news finds us. We can talk to our phones, we can ask questions, we can get things done from an organization without really talking to a human now. So I think finally we have come to the age of artificial intelligence, something that we've been talking about from 1950s. So I graduated, lost count, 23 years ago. And my final year project was in AI, in an area called knowledge-based systems at that time. But I never thought that I'll live the day to really see something that's really useful will come out of AI. But it's happening right now. So we are in an era where data is the new currency. Because when you say AI, AI runs on data. Millions and millions of pieces of data is needed for AI to be useful. But again, I think massive amounts of data is generated, it's captured, it's stored, it's at our disposal, and we have access to tools where we can manipulate and look at this data in any way that we want, for us to get insights out of that, to make predictions using this data. But again, our future will be determined on what problems we try to solve using this massive amount of data and the tools at our disposal. So today being in Sri Lanka, an island, a small one, does not mean anything because we are connected, we are well connected. We have at our disposal everything that someone from Silicon Valley has access to. I think finally capital is also flowing, so that's good. So my invitation to all of you this morning, let's embrace all these technologies and capabilities available to us today to solve real problems for real people around us here. Let's be responsible in how we use these tools. I think some of the technical kind of geniuses that we all admire, people like Elon Musk, has also expressed fears around AI. Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, has established a list of do's and don'ts, the set of guidelines for AI movements within Google, and I think it's worth a read. So let's be responsible. But I'm sure together we can use all of these technologies to make our lives better, to make our country better, and move humanity forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chandiba Kure, the Chief Digital Officer of Hemas PLC, making the keynote address, the opening remarks here at Social Media Day, Colombo 2018. Next, we would like to talk to you on startups and the challenges associated with. He's the founder and the Chief Executive Officer of PickMe, a serial entrepreneur counting 17 years of founding and successful running several tech-based ventures. He currently has himself invested in the most successful tech-based business solution in the country, As the founder and CEO of PickMe, he has become a favorite among the pioneers of the local ICT space, crediting his talent as a driving force in technopreneurship. He was awarded the ICTA Young IT Professional Award in May 2006 and FCCISL Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award April 2004, followed by many local and global awards and nominations won by businesses he founded. Prior to PickMe, he served as a CTO at Wow.lk, the first ever e-commerce venture in the country, and was also a founder in the management team. Ladies and gentlemen, we present to you Mr. Sulfur Jeffrey.
Thank you, Dushan, for that wonderful introduction. Sounded a little, made me a little old though, when you mentioned the years. Okay, so so I'd like to know who's going to flag me. I have 20 minutes to speak. Who's going to flag me on my last 5 minutes? At the back. Oh, someone here? Okay, fine, great, okay. Because I can talk till the cows come home. Right, okay. So, so I've been told to speak about startups and the challenges, right? So I know there's a few entrepreneurs here, but I'd like to know who'd like to, one day, if you can show of hands, who'd like to one day start a company? Okay, all right, great, that's good, that's encouraging, right? So at least, you're going to listen to me now, right? Great, okay, so I'm a guy, who been in this startup world. When I left school. In fact, while in school, I had this company that sort of maintained mail servers for large companies. So at those times, there was nothing called startups at that time. We call it, a business or something like entrepreneurship or something to that effect. But I think it's a great time to be, right? I think when I grew up, your university professors or your school teachers would tell you, it's not about what you know, it's about the people you know, right? 10 years down the road, 10 years ago, that's what they would say. If you want to do business, it's not about what you know, it's about the people you know. But I can tell you now, it's completely different. It doesn't matter who you know, it's what you know, right? It's the technical skills you have, it's the capabilities you have that can actually get a startup going, right? So I think for all of us, for all the young enthusiasts, people not fortunate enough to have rich parents, right? This is a great time to be living, It's a great time. If you want to be an entrepreneur, this is a great time to be at. So, entrepreneurship is a skill, right? And I can only relate entrepreneurship to a game of poker, right? Now, if you haven't learned how to play poker, I suggest you learn that, right? And actually, if you want, I don't think you can walk into a casino here, but I think you should play some poker with your friends, because that's how you learn how to weigh your risks, right? Do you want to go all out, or do you want to hold, right? So a game of poker sort of teaches you the way you need to take risks. And entrepreneurship is essentially risks, right? So I'll talk more about it as we go along. I need to touch upon the challenges as well. Okay, so if you want to start a company, right? If you want to start a company, there's actually two ways of doing it, right? The traditional way is that you bootstrap. And people today also still bootstrap. Even tech-based companies still bootstrap, right? Bootstrap is where you put your money and sort of, you reinvest your profits, right? And then you grow the business. Now, that's the traditional way of doing it. I still encourage people to do it. I did it myself. But the other way today is if you get investors to invest on you, right? The topic of investment is huge, right? But that's another way to look at it. So I leave it to you to decide. If you want to run a startup, I leave it to you to decide how you want to grow your business, right? These are two great ways to grow it, and it depends on how you want to do it, right? So the first, so like I said, in entrepreneurship, there are many challenges, right? And sometimes people say it's a calling, right? And then this gives you a 360 view of a business, right? And I think it has a lot of tests for your personal growth, right? And if you can get into it sooner, the better, right? You don't want to be 40 years, 50 years to get into entrepreneurship. I mean, you still can be very successful, but then your energy has gone down. So you might want to do it early so that you can get as much exposure, right? Because there is a high chance that you will fail on the first attempt, right? So when you fail on the first attempt, you already got that experience in, and you can certainly try it the second time, right? So entrepreneurship, like I said, is a journey, and it has a lot of challenges. And you need to be able to, you need to be prepared to take those challenges, right? I mean, when I sort of left school, my parents wanted me to go and, join a company. But I insisted that I, keep doing what I was doing to, to build my little story. So I encourage people who think in that way as well, because you need to give yourself a try, right? And if you don't do that, when you hit 40 and when you have kids and all that, you'll regret, right? Right? You'll regret about, oh, you know what, I had this idea and I couldn't execute on it. So, like I said, there's many challenges. So I think the first thing a lot of people say is, the biggest problem is capital, right? And I can tell you, this is in fact not even a problem these days, right? In around 2001, 2002, I mean, maybe 10 years ago, this was a huge problem. People didn't have capital. Today, I can tell you, capital is available. I mean, you don't have to even go to Silicon Valley. It's available in our own country, right? So I want to assure you that capital is not the problem now, right? It's about ideas. It's about execution, right? And I'll go more into it. I mean, capital, like I said, is available in abundance. But more importantly, if you start raising capital, right, that's when your problem starts, right? I talked about bootstrapping, and so this is the disadvantage of raising capital. When you raise capital from third parties, seed investors, venture capitalists, etc., that's when your problem starts as an entrepreneur, right? Because now you're accountable for other people's money, right? So yes, it's great to raise money, right? But at the same time, it has its own, it comes with a lot of responsibility. So you need to be assured that when you raise capital, that you take a lot of responsibility for that money, because you don't want to lose that money, right? Because if you lose that money, you lose all credibility, right? Because your second round, if your investment, if your company fails, your second round or your next business will be even more difficult to raise money. So I want you to be very careful when it comes to raising capital. But like I said, capital is available. The next is ideas, right? I can tell you, ideas are also there in abundance. We all have ideas, right? When I started companies, I have my own cousins say, or my own friends say, oh, you know what, I thought about it, right? This is a usual thing, right? I thought about this idea, right? We have a lot of these ideas, and we all have ideas, right? But actually, finally, it's about execution, right? It's finally about execution, right? Right? I'm sure there are $1 million and $1 billion ideas out there, but it's finally about execution, right? So I want you to think about it. And in today's world, yes, ideas have value, but also thought process also has a lot of value, right? When you start thinking about your idea, right? when you start, writing things down, you draw that plan, you get it going, that also has some real value. Because I've realized in my little startups, sometimes I am way ahead, or the company is way ahead in terms of thought, in the process of thinking. How do I do this? How do we get this solved? How do we get that solved? Right? So that also has value in it. So I want you to think about it as well. If you have an idea and you want to start executing, start thinking about the negatives. Think about the positives. Think about what happens, what would happen if you do this or if you do that, right? Think through that process, because that also has value these days, right? And investors are willing to listen to those. And that makes you a great entrepreneur as well, right? If you start thinking through the process. So the next is, right? I mean, you can do it on your own, but these days, doing it on your own is also very difficult, right? So you might want a team member, right? When you do it on your own, you really don't have anyone to go and talk to, right? You don't have people that you can sort of bounce ideas, right? So it's sometimes very good to have a team. Now, having a team has its own problems, right? Now, the people who want to start a company, you might want to start looking at people who can potentially be your team members, right? If you have an idea and you think of, hey, you know what, I want to start this company in the next 6 months, start looking for people. But people come with their own problems also, right? So you need to find that right skill set the right skill set that will allow you to grow. But finally, you need to make sure that you work out a deal between the team members, so that you don't want to get into a situation where the company starts to grow and your team members fall apart or they have issues with you, right? So you want to be very clear with your team members, right? I mean, you've heard of the Facebook story and some of the other startups out there. So you want to make sure that you have a great team, a team that can execute well on your idea, but at the same time, a team that is passionate, a team that is willing to go through the journey with you, right? Entrepreneurship, startups and entrepreneurship is not, okay, obviously they say it's a hockey stick, but there's ups and downs. Your friendship, your relationships will be tested, right? If you are doing it with your friends, that relationship will be tested. And your relationship at home will also be tested, right? If you're married, right, that will also be tested. So get ready. So next thing is connecting the dots, right? If you have heard of Steve Jobs' commencement speech, I think this is a very important thing. I can tell you some of the success that I had was I actually went back in my 20 years of experience and looked at who can do what, right? So it's the connections I made, right? So in terms of people. But what I want to get at here is, exposure is one of the biggest things that you can do to yourself, right? If you want to be an entrepreneur, expose yourself as much as possible. So that means, if some of you are in school, get involved as much as you can, right? If there are clubs there, if there are events or projects, get involved, because that exposure will help you a lot to run your company. So in fact, when you have like a 10 years of experience, right, you've met so much of people, right? You have contact to so much of people, and then you can always connect to them, right? Of course, Facebook has helped, LinkedIn has helped, right? But that connection is very important. The relationships I make today probably will be very useful 6 months later, right? So work on relationships, work on your network of people that you know, because that's going to help you make or break your next startup. So finally, this is what I think is a great formula for a great startup, right? I haven't put, finally, it's about execution capability, right? You have an idea, you should have the capability to execute, right? So that, like I said, it's a journey, right? You need to build that skill. Like Chandima said, the Olympic runner comes with a lot of training, right? When he comes into that track, he's trained enough to run for that 100 meters. So entrepreneurship is also something like that. You need to train yourself, to take that 100-meter race. So execution capability is very important. So you do it alone, you do it with your teams. That's what it finally comes down to. You need to hustle through, right? It's not going to be very easy. You need to hustle through, and you need to be able to come out trumps. And then obviously, idea, right? Of course, like I said, a good idea is very important. You need to think through that idea, understand the pros and the cons, Like a poker game, you need to know, what am I going to execute on, right? How am I going to play that card in this? And then I think the last thing is obviously capital, right? It depends on what business you're trying to start, right? If you think you don't need capital, I admire that, I mean, you should do it on your own. But if you think you need capital, go out there, get that capital. I can tell you, when it's a very competitive space, you need capital, right? If it's not competitive, you can do it on your own, right? You don't want to get a lot of unnecessary pressure running a business. So this, I think, is one of the most important formula for a great startup, right? Like I said, startup is about you getting trained. It's a journey. It's a journey of getting yourself prepared. So the minute you start your company, you are ready to take that responsibility. I'm a great believer that startups or entrepreneurship, and especially in this tech startup, is the only way, or it's probably okay, maybe I should not use the word only, but it's probably the main way that our country can develop, right? I mean, we've lived 7 years of democratic politics in our country, and that has not got us to many places. So I think tech entrepreneurship can get us to the development that we all want, right? So as young people as young enthusiasts in our country, we need to look at how we can use technology to develop our country. So I'm a great believer in that. And I've been supporting some of the small entrepreneurship networks, and I'm very happy to extend that support to other people here. So I want to leave behind some tips, right? So these are self-improvement tips, right? If you want to start a company, learn about the Lean Startup, right? The Lean Startup is a great way to start your business, right? There is a great book about it, right? And obviously, there's a lot of YouTube videos. Have a look at it and see how you can get your business going. The next is learn about the agile process. It's very common amongst the software engineers, but you can also adapt it to businesses as well, in processes, in getting things done. And it also is really good for your personal work as well, even at home, right? Then I recommend everyone to eat healthy. Our Sri Lankan food ain't the best healthy food out there, right? But be conscious about what you eat, right? And then obviously, try to join a gym, right? I mean, when I say join a gym, it's not to put on muscles or anything like that, but be very fit, because it says that if you go to a gym, you're 30% more productive than a person who doesn't go to a gym. So try to join a gym, because that will only enhance your productivity. And then, of course, I talked about Steve Jobs' commencement speech. I think if you haven't seen that, watch that. That just tells what human beings are capable of, right? So see how you can be a human being that achieves a lot of things in your life. Yeah, so that's my end. I think we have a Q&A later on, right? Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jeffrey Sulfa, the CEO and the founder of Pick.me. Right, so that's about the startups and the challenges. And now we are ready to talk about technology and how technology can help boost the healthcare systems. To talk about in those lines, I would like to call upon, ladies and gentlemen, the Chief Operating Officer for Digital Healthcare Solutions Private Limited with the product Aibo.live. She comes with over 20 years of healthcare management expertise, 14 years of which in the UK, having built and set up Himas Hospital, Thalawathagoda, to be noted as a quality care-driven healthcare institution. Dr. Shamila also identified gaps in primary healthcare provisions in Sri Lanka. With a passion to address the consumer needs in the primary healthcare space, Dr. Shamila embarked on a digital healthcare journey with the product Aibo.live. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Shamila Aryananda.
Aibo, good morning everyone. Rest assured I have a super technical team to look after the product. That's not me, as you can see. Right, so we are here about technology and healthcare. And first of all, just to show you what technology is doing to us as people, I'd like to take you through to my first slide. So the world's oldest profession has become robotized. That profession which we think has to be really human physical touch is become robotized. In that backdrop, technology in healthcare should really be a breeze, right? So to showcase a little bit of that, I'll take you through a short video. Right, so I'll take you through some 10 technology trends that's coming in globally and disrupting the healthcare. One is artificial intelligence. Chandima mentioned this is not new. His project 20 odd years ago was on artificial intelligence. So it's not new, the technology, but it's really coming into play in healthcare now. It's actually going to change how machines will know what we need before we know we need it. So that's how advanced that will be. And virtual reality. A lot of us have experienced little bits of that, but in virtual reality, you'll be transformed, your experience will be transformed while you go through procedures that was meant to be very difficult in healthcare. And augmented reality is your enhanced reality, is that it's enhanced sense, heightened sense of where you are already. All of this is changing how medical science, healthcare is practiced globally. It's happening. Healthcare trackers, wearables, and sensors, hugely prevalent in Sri Lanka and this region as well. It's changing how we consume healthcare already. It's telling us, okay, your blood sugar is a little high, go and see a doctor. It would tell us, your blood pressure is a little high, go and see a doctor. It would also tell you haven't done your steps today. It also tell you need to go to the gym or whatever and walk and run and all of that because you haven't achieved the targets today. So this is very prevalent in Sri Lanka. It's slowly defining how we consume healthcare today. And medical tricorder. This is going to change how healthcare and physicians and patients and healthcare institutions practice medical science. This is this super technology that will diagnose you, tell you what you need, and define your treatment procedure to go forward. And genome sequencing. This is already prevalent in Sri Lanka as well. We do genetic testing. In this, what we would do is, you would find what this exact person needs and what is genetically predisposed, and it will go on to what we call personalized medicine. So it's no longer you need to take 100 milligrams of this over 5 days to be able to get the result. It's a case of take this medicine 3 times over next 2 weeks, and it will be targeted exactly as you need in the right dose to your physique. Then all of this is changing how drugs are developed in terms of genome sequencing, in terms of all of those sciences are coming in. But additionally, another element that's coming in is there's a lot of simulations coming in terms of clinical trials. So that 10-year trial period that drug companies need are not required anymore to take a product out. What that means is it evolves so fast that your requirement in terms of a medication need is really coming to you today, what may have happened in another 5 years' time. And nanotechnology. This is also prevalent in many industries coming into healthcare. So these tiny little drug delivery systems, it's not going to be that you need an injection that goes through your bloodstream to your heart, to your lungs, and then all through the systems to get to one tiny part of your body. These tiny little mini drug delivery systems will walk through the system, not exposing the chemicals to any other system, and go directly and target the place that needs intervention. And robotics, hugely prevalent in the West, already prevalent in India as well. There's one machine also in Sri Lanka, where the robot is programmed to do certain procedures. And is so advanced where certain, in healthcare sometimes, certain procedures we tend to cut corners. Robots don't do that. If you try to attempt to cut, if the clinician tries to do that, they literally throw away all the equipments and just walk away. That's how advanced the robotic surgeries are. And 3D printing. And that's really taking away a lot of problems. In US, this is widely prevalent. We are printing tiny little hearts. We've gone on to print little kidneys, all of those little things that our little human beings need. That became a huge problem in the past where these transplants and all of those was needed. So that is what's happening globally. So what's happening close to home in Sri Lanka? We are not that far off of technology. We have connected devices. We have all these blood pressure gadgets, quite a few, many other things coming in terms of blood sugar, all of that. You don't need to go to a doctor and sit in front of a doctor and do all of that. That can be done at home by yourself. And cardiac monitoring. That is actually one industry that we also support as well, Pulse. They are bringing in, they are taking away all the problems around ECG and Holter monitoring and all of that, where you had to put all those leads and lie down and wait, and then you wait another 3-4 days to get a report out. That's completely revolutionized. And then e-pharmacies. Some of you may or may not know, we already have very good e-prescription delivery systems. You don't need to go to a pharmacy, just upload your prescription, or your whatever the service you may use to access your doctor may directly take it to a connected e-pharmacy, and they can actually deliver it for you. And genetic testing, as I said before, is prevalent here. There are a couple of companies already doing that. Slightly expensive, the solution for our market right now, but there is a market going for that. If you go and get your test self-tested, you would know, I'm going to get, there's a chance, 70% chance of me getting breast cancer when I'm 40 plus. There's a 20% chance of me getting prostate cancer when I'm 50 plus. That's already here. And video expert calls. That is prevalent with many solutions that's coming. There's few of us trying to do that right now in the market. And digital laboratories. Digital laboratories doesn't mean that some robo comes and takes your blood out. That bit happens physically. Everything else is digitalized. You don't actually need to go anywhere to get your report. It can come on your phone, and you can just log into a site and get your reports, and it's all there, all trended, all data, that's all there. And tracking lifestyle data, as I said, many, I think there's about 18 to 20 different variables already in Sri Lanka doing health and fitness tracking. On top of that, there's various other medical tracking devices coming in as well. So with all of this, you'd think it should be easy enough to adopt all of this technology and just go on the journey that the Western world is experiencing. It's not quite the case for us in this region for some reasons. There's the major challenge that we healthcare disruptive, myself and companies like Sohans, all of them find, is a behavior change. So hats off to Zulfa and your company for doing what you're doing, but we would like to challenge that it's for us in healthcare, you have to actually change somebody's behavior of accessing the service. Taxi rides, people want taxi rides, but it's now really convenient. It's on your phone to get the taxi to you. Doctor booking services, you want a doctor to be booked, it's really easy, you go and book the appointment. But actually in healthcare, to trust that I can get the same outcome by e-form, either via a digital form or a video form or through a conversation on a text messaging, to get the desired outcome, I get that behavior change is really challenging. Not for us just alone here in Sri Lanka or this part, also in the West. They also had to go through a huge journey. It's not just today as well. Back in 1847, when Dr. Semmelweis found out that hand washing can prevent child death at maternal stages, it took him over a decade to convince his healthcare professionals just to wash hands. So behavior change is not difficult just today. It goes back as far as then. But there's a difference today. Dr. Semmelweis, Ignaz Semmelweis didn't really have guys like you who can go out, shout out, demand disruption, and demand all of that. And there's another element that comes into us. In the Western world, the governance structure is more geared to adapt technologies, and there's all those insurance things, and they support all of that. So the burden of taking the decision by the actual user is slightly taken away in healthcare. But in this part of the world, where the burden of your healthcare is all on you, the decision is all on you as well. Because of that, this disruption is a little difficult for people like us and maybe Sohans and all of those in healthcare. But you can make the change, because we founders like us in digital disruptive healthcare technologies depend on you and the power of social media to go out and experiment this and demand change and make sure our healthcare professionals also adapt to this and guide us through the journey. Thank you very much for listening to me. Any questions I can answer now. I guess there's later another session for questions if anybody needs. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Chamila Ariyananda. Before we move on with the next address on social media and how to leverage social media for your own benefit and build your own brands, ladies and gentlemen, make sure when you post any of your selfies, your postings on social media, to hashtag them with hashtag SMDay CMB 2018. If possible, we will super them on the screens. Hashtag SMDay, that is social media day, CMB for Colombo, and 2018. Right. And the posting with the most number of likes, views, we will consider of rewarding them later on. Right, ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned earlier, to talk about how to leverage social media for your own benefit and to build your own brands, we'd like to call upon Melissa. Melissa had a penchant for creativity since childhood, and it was rekindled after her return to Sri Lanka. lack of opportunities in the field in the biomedical sciences, the island provided her with an avenue to pursue her passion in the creative fields of photography and baking. She opened an Instagram page called Bakes by Bella and has now looked back 4 years on. She has gone through the journey from a home baker to being a proud cafe owner. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Melissa Dharmadasa.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? You can, right? Okay, awesome. Good morning, everyone, and it's an absolute honor for me to be standing here right now. I sincerely thank Etisalat for giving me this opportunity. It's completely nerve-wracking. But yeah, thank you for giving me this amazing opportunity. So, to start off, my name is Melissa, and I'm a baker. I wasn't always a baker, though. My career started off as a biomedical scientist whilst residing in London, until one fine day, I met my lovely husband, and I decided to move back to Sri Lanka to embark on this new journey of mine as a wife. I figured, given my educational qualifications and my experiences in the field, that finding a job and securing a job should be a piece of cake. It wasn't. This was when my true challenge began. Needless to say, the transition was a stressful one. And we all know how when bad things happen, they happen in clusters. But that's a story for a different day. Anyway, I was desperately in need of that happy place. And something that I've always done when I've been stressed is bake. So you can imagine there was a lot of stress baking going on, and as a result, there was a lot of cake lying around my house, and as a result of that, my husband is now on a diet. He's sitting somewhere there. But it was also during this time that I very spontaneously decided to create an Instagram account with my nickname Bella to merely separate my baking pictures from my personal profile. I really didn't expect it to snowball into what it is today. When I started off on Instagram, there was no selling because that wasn't the motive behind it. But when the few followers I had at the time started DMing me and asking me, oh, you know, how much is this? Are you selling? I figured, hey, wait a minute, I don't really have a job right now, so might as well sell some cake and make some money, which is what I ended up doing. And then when I realized that people actually liked the product, this was when my confidence in it started to grow as well. And I thought to myself, okay, let's get a little innovative with the product now. And this was when I started introducing new things into the market, things that I felt that Colombo hadn't been introduced to yet, things that I missed from back in London. It was just little things. And I firmly believe that this was one of those aspects that certainly gave me a competitive advantage in a market that was already so densely saturated with bakers and home bakers. It was also during this time that my personal addiction to taking pictures and also dressing up and posing for pictures, like most people do, came into play. For me, this page was never really just a product page for me. It was also a platform for me to share my interests, my rants, you name it. So because it was also lifestyle-based, and because it was also relatable, a brand started to form around it. A lot of people have asked me why Bakes by Bella was anonymous at the start. And if I'm being honest, I just really didn't want my face on there. No marketing gimmick there at all. I just didn't want my face on there. But as I went along, I started to realize what a curious little land I now lived in. And that element of mystery that surrounded Bella was something that seriously played into the curiosity of people and worked massively to my advantage. Another question I've been asked is, why polka dots? Okay, so I honestly love polka dots. My dog is a polka dot. But until this point, again, it didn't occur to me just how many polka dotted items of clothing I had in my wardrobe. So the more I started having polka dots in my posts, people started to relate it to Bakes by Bella. I guess it's human nature that when you see something over and over again, you start to form, it starts to form a lasting impression on your brain. And this ended up creating a brand identity of sorts for me. Today, Bakes by Bella is a household name. You see this logo, and you instantly know that it's Bakes by Bella. You see a jar with cake in it, you automatically assume it's one of Bella's jars. You see a drip cake, and you end up relating it to Bella again. You see polka dots, you end up relating it to Bella. Why is this? Because these are things you see around so often, but why relate it to Bella? I think you relate it to Bella because I made the product relatable to you by humanizing the posts and making the picture speak instead of just leaving it static. As a result of these unintentional little aspects that I went purely on my gut instinct on, by the way, today I'm the very proud owner of a successful little cafe in the heart of Colombo that attracts young and old alike. Me being a person who came here that had zero opportunities in a field that I thought I knew best and in a field that I was trained in. If you were to ask me right now what my biggest accomplishment is at the moment, it's that I've been able to provide opportunities for 15 other people. And to me, my priority is the people that I work with, my team. Because I know that if they're happy, my customer is automatically taken care of. This brand, for me, is something that's been built on my values, principles, and my burning desire for mutual respect. Anyone who knows me well enough knows that these are topics I'm extremely vocal on. And in a town as small as ours, and especially on a digital spectrum, it's extremely easy to mislead people. So for me, I find small victories in knowing that the moment people start to understand the brand value, that it's easy for me to turn a hater into a fan. But something that I've also always done is when I have my little team meetings with my staff, I always remind them it's super easy to sell a product, but it's building a brand. That's the task. So if you were to ask me to give you 3 tips on brand building, it would be the following. 1, you need to constantly evolve and reinvent your product. You have to understand that the customer bores super easily. So your content needs to be fresh, exciting, engaging, and current. 2, you need to motivate your base, your followers, to be the best versions of themselves. It could be something as small as a random motivational post that you'd put up at a random time in the day. But you have no idea what sort of an impact that could have on someone who's having a bad day. Or it could be using the power of your social media to make one small action in your community that could end up having a ripple effect. Doing stuff like that is so much more powerful than being a keyboard warrior. And 3, you need to figure out what your purpose and motivation is behind building this brand that you want to embark on. For me, my purpose has evolved as I have. When I started off, my purpose was solely to find a happy place and a stress buster. But today, my purpose has evolved into something so much more. Today, my happy place is knowing that I've managed to build a little haven with free Wi-Fi and great food and coffee, by the way, a haven of sorts for people to come in, interact, discuss ideas, work, study, and moreover, use the platform that I have built as a platform for yourselves to showcase your talents. This is something I do quite regularly. If you follow me, you would know. I love giving my platform to people to showcase their talents. And to me, nobody gave me a platform like that. So, and it's an achievement to know that I've been able to do that. So what do I want to ask you? Those of you interested in building a brand, what is your motive behind it? What is it that you want to achieve from it? And now, obviously, it's, you know, it's all right to fail. I've failed numerous times. There are times that I'm really not sure of what I'm doing anymore. It's extremely challenging. Of course, working a 9-to-5 job is so much easier because you know that that paycheck's waiting for you at the end of the month. It's not the same when you're on your own path. But like, for me, there are times that it gets so crazily exhausting. I have 10 calls coming into me with 10 different problems that I need to solve before I even leave the house some days. But at times like that, when I'm so completely exhausted, is when I remind myself why I started this in the first place and how far it's come from where I began. And I remind myself that this is my baby now. And if I don't see it through, nobody else is going to. So when it comes to taking that challenge, I say, dive in head first and seriously enjoy your journey, because it's only then that one day you're going to be able to look back on everything you've done and say, damn, I did that. And right now, it's one of those moments for me where I look back and I'm like, damn, I did that. And I'm standing here right now in front of all you wonderful people. So thank you so much for having me, guys. And it's an absolute honor to have spoken today.
So many success stories, so many words of true inspiration being talked. So thank you very much, Melissa Dharmadasa of Bakes by Bella. Right, next in line, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about how to grasp these new opportunities in the field and build a successful startup. You know, finding the perfect opportunities for building a successful startup. To talk to you on that particular subject, we'd like to call upon the Chief Technology Officer at ODOC. His interests lie in machine learning and algorithms. Background is in applied mathematics and have an MSc in optimization from MIT and a PhD in computational mathematics from Stanford University. Currently focusing on building the machine learning components of ODOC, and work with Apple has been featured by the BBC, NPR, Wired, and Engadget. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Sohan Dharmaraja.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me. All right. Etisala, thank you very much for having me. It's a great opportunity to get a chance to stand in front of you and talk a little bit about my story and my message today. A confession, I normally, when I was asked for the bio this last week, I don't normally like to include the academics because it's, anyway, for a couple of reasons. But the reason I wanted to include it this time was I think it helps to tell the story I want to say today. And that's namely when I told my parents and my colleagues in the US that I wanted to return to Sri Lanka, the first thing they said was, why? You know, there's so much you can do here. Why do you want to go back? And my response to them was, you know, I think there's a lot of opportunity back home. So, you know, I remember reading a long time ago that the human attention span drops by 50% in the first 20 minutes. So I think I'm the third or fourth speaker today. So people are probably, hopefully paying as much attention now as at the beginning. But I want to start with the takeaway message as opposed to leaving it for the end. And if I had to ask you to remember one thing after this talk, it would be, you know, you've heard the saying, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. What I'd like you to remember today is that opportunity is in the eye of the beholder. So just, I want to tell you how I have approached this idea of identifying opportunity through some of the stories I have been a part of these last couple years. So I think a really nice example of perspective is some of these ads you may have seen if you, I don't know, have gone through some airports. This is an ad by HSBC, and I think it really shows you how people associate different perspectives with outcomes. So top row, you see different ways to define an accomplishment. Bottom row, you see how you can define discipline. The last image is a bit sketchy. You know, I think the best way to get this message across is with a few quick stories about things I have been a part of. I want to talk about three things. One is actually the first product I worked on when I came back. It was essentially a social media tool. The second one was an app that I worked on to make touchscreen technology more accessible to the blind community. And the third is what I work on currently at a company called ODOC. Kind of ironically, this social media product that I put out back in 2012 was very quickly banned by Facebook for abusing a lot of you know, their terms and conditions. But it was a really nice idea, I think. And the idea behind it was we wanted to build a tool that allowed the small businesses to compete with the big ones. And we could do that because social media was becoming very prevalent at the time, and word of mouth is very important. So I want to show you a quick clip. I think it's 30 seconds, but this was a video we developed back in 2012. And again, the takeaway is that social networks are very powerful, very prevalent, far-reaching, and using this, you could actually deliver personalized marketing services. Oh, sorry, I don't know why I jumped so much. So I'm going to push forward once. Is it not possible to play the video?
You get every dollar from your digital media budget. To see how this works, let's start with Facebook. Imagine you own a cafe and you want to grow your business. Advertise and market better by studying your competitors. Send personalized messages directly to their inbox. Maybe even offer them a promotion. You know your business better than anyone else. Socialroo just gives you the tools to use social media more efficiently.
Okay, well, I think that's it. But the idea was very simple. You know, I could walk into a company, I could say, who is your biggest competitor? I could hit a button, I could find all the negative comments about the competitor company on Facebook, and with another button, I could send them a personalized message. Hey, Mr. John Smith, sorry to hear about your bad meal at Cinnamon Grand. Why don't you come to Hilton for a 20% discount? I mean, this thing sold itself. I mean, this was crazy. I think we charged people like $1 a message because, you know, it was accountable advertising. And the way I kind of zoned in on this is when I came back, I thought, you know, what is the most backward industry in Sri Lanka at the time? And it was marketing. Sorry. But it was a very low-hanging fruit. And at the time, I think this concept of accountable advertising, accountable marketing was eye-opening. And this just seemed like a good idea at the time. So again, you can on one hand, you can sit back and complain, there's no accountable marketing, it's just impossible to sell my product or reach my competitors' unhappy customers. But, one of the things that I hope you take away from today is, you can look at it as a complaint, or you can look at it as an opportunity. This is the perspective I'm talking about. So the second example I want to get into is this app that I worked on, and it was shocking to me at the final stages of my degree. I remember walking into the blind school at my university, and I said, what are you all using in terms of technology? What apps do you use? Anything I can help with? And they said, no, we don't use apps. It's just, how can you use an app? And they just quickly tried to change the topic and talk about something else. And you sit and you kind of drill away, and you kind of realize that there is something to be done here. So what we worked on was a very simple tool that basically identified your fingers when you touch a screen. It's not rocket science, but you touch a screen with both hands. There's a way to figure out which fingers are your thumbs, which ones are your pinkies, so on and so forth. So using this, we were able to propose an input system, not just Braille as you use it as a reading system. How can you use the fact that if you can read Braille, you can probably write Braille if you can touch on a touch screen. So we worked on this. We developed a nice proof of concept in the US. Brought it back. We actually tested and refined this at the blind school. And I guess it's not related to the talk, but it was a very humbling experience to see the smile on people's faces when they can actually use an app for the first time. And just to connect it back to the theme of the talk, where did this idea come from? It came from the fact that there was an obvious complaint among this community. I can't use this, or this. What I'm supposed to use is just impractical or infeasible. So yeah, it was nice. We actually got messages from people around the world saying, this is great. My kid can use an app for the first time. The last thing I want to leave you with today is a little bit about what I do now. I think it would be kind of hypocritical to come and say I'm going to teach you how to identify ideas if I don't at least say something about what I'm doing now. And I know it's risky to ask questions from the audience, but if somebody asked you now, what is the biggest issue in reaching a doctor? What's the first thing that comes to mind? Sorry? Waiting. Time. Yeah, exactly. So this is it. The time wasted to get in front of a doctor. And along with that, I think doctors in this country have some kind of a God complex. They come late. It's a mess. But you think about all the things that go along with the time wasting getting in front of a doctor. You probably have to maybe take time from work, put in leave. You sit in traffic, and probably this appointment might not even be for you. So not only are you wasting time on behalf of yourself, on behalf of other people also. So, my co-founder approached me. He has 2 kids. He said, Sohan, I'm just dying. I have gone to the doctor's office, 4 times in the last month. Let's try to crack this problem. So we started thinking about this, and we thought, yeah, there are a lot of good reasons to try to use this problem and turn it into an idea. And this is what I want to just conclude with today. So very simply, what do? We help people get in front of a doctor. It's quick, it's on demand. You can do it from your house, from your office. Of course, the obvious things you would expect come with this. You can upload your pictures. The prescriptions come to your phone. You can get it delivered to the house. and all the conveniences that you would expect with a service like this. This is growing. We started with a couple, maybe 10 or 20 doctors at the beginning of the year. We have now 130 working with us, and this solution isn't meant to make everybody happy, but there are quite a few situations where this is convenient, and I think we've got almost I'd say 13,000 users using this at the moment. Can I just jump to where we stopped? Okay. Okay, so just another, so we launched this, we thought, things are going great, but again, the complaints come in. Melissa mentioned you have 1,000 problems before you start the day. We started getting complaints that, I can't download the app on my phone, I don't have internet, and that actually inspired us to launch this kind of mini version, or what's the word, self-contained version of ODoc. We actually have built like a phone booth. We stick it somewhere. You don't need to download the app. You don't need to install it. You don't need to register. You don't need internet. You just walk in and tap, tap, tap. You're talking to a doctor. So we're actually trying to distribute this to more remote outstation places, orphanages, just to get people using this. And I'm happy to say we have a couple of really good partner companies who also believe in this vision and are helping us to push this and make this a success in the country. So that's really all I wanted to say today. Zulfa, you mentioned 3 things: good idea, execution, and capital. I hope that you can probably use some of these things to instead of looking at things as complaints, to try now to see, okay, can I actually fix this problem? Is there an idea? Is there a business that I can build around this? And hopefully with organization and discipline, you can actually come to that level of execution. So again, I want to thank you for listening to me. Again, takeaways: perspective is in the eye of the beholder. Be conscious. Don't just be one of those negative Nancys, is the glass half full? No, it's time to get a different glass. So thanks very much for listening. I'm happy to take questions when the Q&A comes around. Thank you. And I drink a lot of coffee, so I hope I was clear and spoke kind of at a decent pace. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Come on, everyone. Give it for Mr. Sohan Dharmaraj. Come on. Thank you. So now it's time to use the technology and go on board. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be having a speaker joining with us online. Trying to get connected now, yes. He's the founder and the chief executive officer of Eskimi. Eskimi is a global programmatic advertising and data platform with current monthly reach of more than 1 billion users worldwide. And as a programmatic platform, Eskimi operates a data management platform, DMP, strong, rich media suite, anti-fraud and brand safety tools, and a set of cost reduction algorithms. Eskimi is operating in Sri Lankan market and reaches 9M unique consumers per month, 9 million unique consumers per month. And joining with us to talk about this Eskimi business and especially how it get themselves promoted in the local market, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call upon and welcome to this social media day taking place in Sri Lanka. Please welcome Mr. Vitos Poxtisis, who will talk to you on Eskimi digital business marketing tools and how they can empower business growth for startups, brands in Sri Lanka.
Hello, can you hear me well? 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 Can Okay, great. So thanks a lot. It's a great pleasure to talk to you via video. I'm happy to share the insights of the platform and also talk about the programmatic business a bit. So you can hear me well. I can switch to my presentation and start talking. Can you confirm that connection is good? Okay. Great. So share the screen with a presentation and start. So first of all, let me introduce the company. And we, as a Skimmy, as a brand, have started already 11 years ago. And we were operating usually in the European markets. And in 2010, we have started Skimmy as a brand. And first of all, it was just a simple chat platform. We were very lucky to grow the platform up to more than 20 million users in the African and Asian markets, and where Skimmy brand was created. Then in 2013, we created Skimmy Pay payment and carrier billing solution, which currently with more than 3 million people in the 50 million transactions a day. Today, the platform that we'll talk about is the Skimmy Programmatic and Data platform. We currently reach more than 1 billion customers per month and operate in more than 3 billion transactions a day. We're in 5 markets, and this product is the fastest growing product in one of the fastest growing markets. And we started this in 2015. So we, as a business, currently reach out to more than 2 million sites and apps. And this reach more than 3 million a month. And today I will talk about the data stories mean to us and how data can help drive success. So if we look at Skimmy in Sri Lanka, our reach has grown a lot as well. We reach out to more than 25,000 customers in the Sri Lankan market with a reach of 12 consumers today. So as I mentioned, we are live in 34 markets, and us as a business, we're always focused on the markets which are large, a bit different from the European and the US markets in terms of the consumers, the devices, the data that they leave as spaces when browsing. So we are in markets like the African markets like Nigeria, Kenya, India, and we're operating a lot in Southeast Asia. So first of all, I would like to touch a bit on what is programmatic and what are the main things. It's really important for you to know basic things and how programmatic works. So first of all, the definition itself. So programmatic is basically algorithms buying media spaces in real time, and it's very different from the out model, placing the ad directly to the publisher, and not knowing what kind of audience you play reach. Programmatic actually is buying, optimizing media towards a very precise audience to reach, and this is done automatically via the bidding system connected to a certain exchange site. Not buying event, well, buying the decision for each impression individually. So the first term that we use is, of course, the demand-side platform, DSP. So basically, it's a platform where the whole demand for campaigns and traffic is generated. So it's basically a network where you come and put your campaigns, and you can reach consumers via sites. Another term which is important, SSP, which is a supply-side platform. And this is the supply places where websites and apps connect to sell their traffic. In the world, we have a lot of SSPs or exchanges, as we call them. As an example, it's a DoubleClick owned by Google, Rubicon or Mobile owned by Twitter, and they are actually aggregating all the traffic under their umbrella and then selling to the DSPs. And then a DMP, a very important part of the business, it's to simplify the very big database which stores all the information about the users, through certain identifiers like cookies, device IDs, many things. But it stores all the information from behavior, demographic interests, technical information. So if we look very flow, an SSP sells traffic, DSP decides to buy the traffic and buys the traffic, and then the DMP provides the decision. So, of course, there are many other technologies that are included here. You normally have ad serving and anti-fraud and viewability metrics and many things, but simplifying how programmatic works and what are the main players in the market, basically it's these 3 steps that each product goes through before it's being bought. So if we look at the key elements of programmatic, I already mentioned that everything's done real time. Each impression is valued real time. But then if we look at what are the benefits of programmatic, we have 5 key elements, and I'll not go in all of them, but first of all, of course, with programmatic, we have usually the highest reach to the market. If you compare with the key platforms like Facebook, Google, they have their users, they of course reach a lot of consumers. But if you use programmatic platforms, usually they connect to all of the exchanges. So if we look, for example, in DoubleClick, you look at the data that provide. So usually people would have half of the impressions, and then the other half would be controlled other exchanges that I mentioned. So if you buy through a programmatic platform, you can then make sure that you actually have the highest reach and reach almost all the market. The second very important thing is the audience data. I will go deeper into it. Programmatic platforms control the data, can build audiences, and allow you to target them in a very precise manner, not overspend the budget with the audiences that you don't want to reach. It is very important, and the last couple of years became more important, the brand safety. In programmatic platforms, you can control where your brand is being displayed. So you can control the environment, you can control the content, and this is also done in an automated way that the brand is being safe to display in the environment. Programmatic platform also can allow you to optimize the price, and this is also a good tool to reduce costs and make them. And very important as well is creatives. Programmatic platforms allow you to build data-driven creatives and display almost unique creatives for each consumer, which is browsing. So I would today like to get only into a couple of elements of programmatic, talk more about audience data, and show you examples of what we call data stories. We created this term data story to have a more clear communication of target audience segments, because it became quite complicated in the today's market where all the algorithms are used, and we create data just to align our target and audience with our. So what is SKP data store? So first of all, you have to understand that each user, when they browse, when they consume content online, they leave certain traces, leave factual data about themselves. And if we look at what kind of data can be created from user browsing, of course, it's education, it's the content used, it's the sites the customer visits, the device that is being used, the com operator that is used, because the customer splits their browser distance, whether the customer travels and browses from different locations. All this data can be used proxy to other conclusions. So I will show you a couple of examples to demonstrate how we can use this data to create segments, and then how to use this in your business. So first of all, I will use a couple of case studies. The first one is how luxury brands communicate their products. So let's look at United Arab Emirates in Dubai. You can see that Dubai Palm, which we can use to create audiences. And normally, when you the problem was that brands like Maserati and Rolex came to us and asked for wealthy audience targeting. Normally, it's very hard to get that kind of audience because it's just below 1% of the total crowd. So what we did, we geo-fixed only the wealthy area of the Dubai Palm. And if you can see, these are the leaves of the palm and outlets around the area where all the peoples are. And created 1,000 users which live there for further targeting. In this case, us and the client agreed that this is the best place to collect the audiences, and everybody who browses frequently from this location, we then the audience. We were able to target them after that for the browse. Another case, I can use the example of Sri Lanka, where we have geofenced the Colombo airports, and out of this information, we know which customers came into the airport, assigned them to a specific audience, and we're able to check any customers and which directions they were flying, basically able to collect this audience and know where they landed, where they browsed. So we did a couple of case studies around this in Sri Lanka, and if I can take very recent examples for the FIFA football cup, basically, we have done the same thing in Morocco and targeted 40,000 Moroccans traveling to Russia to watch the game, with a Coca-Cola game, which was the creative of the game, was also to actually communicate that to people to the FIFA. So this was a combination of targeting of people who are actually going to the game and data-driven creative. They were seeing activity which was very relevant to their travel plans. So the next data story example would be telecoms, and if you look at telecom information, Informatic Platform as can collect a lot from technical data. What device the customer uses, what operators they use, location that they're browsing, all these things. This becomes very important for telecoms to create audiences for. So we are creating specific research and segments for targeting, and we're able to collect information about the user, whether they're using a multi-SIM, whether they're on 2G, 3G, or 4G network, whether they're using any ISPs in their home. We're also able to track the users which are leaving one or the other operator, track the IP changes. We can segment the users by data consumption, by device prices, and by usage areas. And all this provides real data for telecoms and for other brands, because, as I mentioned, if you target the consumer by the device price, you can also determine their purchasing purchasing power as an example. So if you see in these examples, for example, we are able to track the migrations in Sri Lanka, looking at how people would move from one or the other operator. This is the figures made. We see more than 1 million consumers have changed the operators, and they're able to tell from which operator to which operator migration happened. So this can create a segment for the operator to target the consumers who left the operator doing back promotion or some other case. So if we look at some use in the country, so there's also data. There are 2.2 billion users who split their money between more than one SIM card, and we can also track and see what is the most used there. So in this case, you can see that 1.5 million consumers are having 2 SIMs in there, which is the Vitel and Dialog. And as I mentioned, you can actually track and collect the socioeconomic class of the user by the device price. And in this case, we see that it has most wealthy user, average price of the phone. And again, this can be created by the programmatic platform. You can target by data consumption, and Sri Lanka will reach more than 12 million users, and then you can split them even by their data. So for a mobile operator, it doesn't make sense to target users with a 5 gigabyte data plan, even if they want to make it. So it makes sense not to overspend the budget, target only the correct the data that you have. And more examples as well of how the brand happens by location, and this is maps for other areas in Sri Lanka, which help you to determine where the actual browsing happened. It can be used for research or. So this was the telecom example, and another example I use is the mobile phone. So phone manufacturers also want to create specific segments. So what happens now is that if you're launching a new device, flagship device would be promoted to all of the users. But in reality, not all consumers can afford a snack. Our platform and the mobile phone manufacturers starting to only target the consumer who actually can afford the phones, and then by the device price target consumers who can afford a specific device, and then split the audiences in the market, the end user price. With the data that we have from history of the users, the devices, that we can also detect the fastest growing phones. We can check which devices in the market is new ones, and this can provide insights for the marketing communications further. So as an example, we pulled the figures from Sri Lanka as well. You see Samsung, the highest share of browser devices, and second most used device, Huawei. Of course, this is only for the users who are online. This does not include those who are just using voice, but this provides a really good indication of what is happening in the market. And another example could be a lot of data points can be collected about the users, but this again, the example of where how many users can be reached of other markets. So Sri Lankans live in India, Pakistan, Australia. Okay. This is done by the sites they use, the languages they use, the travel to Sri Lanka, so on. So all data can be collected for an audience, which is important, for example, for money senders, Western Union, and other products. So, of course, this creates a lot of this, and there are many channels to create audiences. So we have created some tools, like here see in a screenshot from one of our clients is that trying to create a center and then select all audiences in one place. It becomes very much important, specifically in areas where a lot of need to start managing the audiences from campaign to campaign. Today, what happens if you just put on one plan, all audiences scattered, you cannot have a place to manage. For our brand, we created this where we collect audience from your website, audience from the browsing behavior. It's just a geolocation and any other areas. Another thing which I wanted to show a couple of examples is again about data, but more the creative side. So you can create, as I mentioned, using platforms. First, in theory, you can show 12 million different creatives if you want to target users by just a couple of examples what kind of creatives can be used. So you see the dynamic ads can target the users, for example, a person traveling or documenting, you'll see the ad that show that it's about the other live test offer. So the operator has run a campaign with the user. If the speed is bad, then you switch to another operator. And there are many we can display the sports results real time as we did here. Okay, I'm hearing that you have a technical issue. And you can't hear me now. So I guess so my presentation is ending, and so basically I would like to summarize. Using programmatic platforms, you can use data a lot, and instead of spraying or marketing around, you can start using very targeted, and this can help you the budget by many times.
Right, that was Mr. Vitos Boxtisis of Eskimi. And I hope that he could hear these round of applauses. So before we open the forum for our panel discussion, ladies and gentlemen, we have one more presentation. It's about the evolution of social media and where it is headed. To talk to you on this particular subject, we're going to call upon Head of Digital at Shift, the leading digital agency in Sri Lanka. He has over 18 years of experience in the IT and digital marketing field. Passion is technology and how people experience it. Please welcome Mr. Charitha Vaidyaratna.
Good morning. Good morning. Everyone awake? Everyone seems to be sleeping, so hopefully this will wake you up. So my name is Charitha, and I'm heading Shift Digital, and there are two parts to my job. I play around with technology as well as digital marketing, and this word digital marketing is a bit of a commonly used word, and a lot of people ask me, what is digital marketing? What do you do? So pretty much this explains what I do. My friends think, I'm partying with the girls, which is not true. My parents think I'm studying really hard, but my clients think I'm on Facebook most of the time, which is kind of true. Society thinks I'm having a breeze, life at the beach with the laptop. I, of course, feel like I'm running Google, which I'm not. But most of the time what happens is I'm just tearing my head out, and that's pretty much digital marketing in this era. So the digital era. Someone asked me recently, how would I visualize the internet? And I kind of kept thinking about how would you picture the internet in one picture. It'll be something like this. Now, a lot of you might not understand why this kind of sums up the internet. I'll explain this to you in person after this session, because this picture itself will take about an hour to explain. But this pretty much is the internet. But where are we right now? This is the reality of the situation. We are a bunch of families sitting in front of a TV, not really watching the TV. I actually have a question about this picture. I'm not sure why there are 2 adults and 3 whiskey glasses. There seems to be a problem there, but that's a whole different thing. So this is the situation where we are in. We are a bunch of people watching TV, but not really watching TV. And remember those days when we used to say BRB? I'm not sure how many of you used MSN Messenger, probably the older ones, but when I used MSN Messenger, we used to be chatting, we say BRB. But we don't say that anymore, because we don't really leave our seat. We don't leave. We kind of live in this digital world, and that's the reality. There's no BRB anymore. We are always here. And you might take it as a negative or positive, but that's the reality of the situation. But do you remember this? When parents used to say, don't sit next to the TV, your eyes will get, But then again, in this year, we are kind of wearing VR headsets, which is like TV screens right up our face, and no one seems to notice, but here we are. So, let's quick stat check. 7.6 billion people in this world, 4.2 billion people are on the internet, and 3.3 on social media. So you can see how much we have grown for the past 20 years. And if you take social media as an overall, Facebook, of course, rules overall, but you can see how much WeChat has grown, which is a messenger service, and the enormous growth of Instagram, 800 million already, and it's actually moving faster than the growth of Facebook. So what about Sri Lanka? We have 20 million people, 27 million mobile connections, 6 million social media users, 880,000 Instagram users, and we always have about 4 to 5 aunties who keep sending us chain mails. But the funny thing is, these chain mails have stopped. Now they're sending this stuff on WhatsApp to me, and it's like they keep sending me, if you don't forward this in 10 days, something's bad's going to happen. And I keep replying saying, Auntie, this is not true, this is not the way it works, but that's the reality. As I'm speaking right now, it's been about a minute. We have about 900, almost 1 million logins on Facebook, about 4.3 million video views, 500,000 tweets, 187 million mails sent, and about 3.7 million search queries. And that's reality. Right now, that's what's happening. So this shows how much people are kind of interacting with the digital medium. So this whole technology we've been worked with, the reason why it's rapidly changing is because we love to share content and consume content. And that's the biggest driving factor of technology. The way human beings love to, from cave paintings, to television. That's the reason why we rapidly change technology is because we love sharing and consuming content. And if you take a look at how this world evolved from back in the day, anyone remember Atari? No? No one? Okay. So from Apple to Atari to the first Windows, we kind of rapidly changed to the mobile era, and now we have kind of gone to a different era, which is virtual reality, mixed reality, and augmented reality, which the previous speakers kind of spoke about. But as you can see, this wave is kind of progressing at a certain rate. We really don't know what's next, but we kind of have a few ideas. So I will first speak about a few trends, and then I'll kind of go to what the future will hold for us. It has to be quick, it has to be fast. No one really has patience anymore, and that's the reality of the situation. Everybody wants everything fast. No one really wants to wait till the YouTube video loads. If it doesn't load, you skip. So we are in this instant culture, and it's almost like an obligation. It's gotten to a point which is actually really sad, because people don't seem to appreciate how much technology goes behind something, but everybody wants it now. And that is the reality, and it's very challenging for advertisers as well as content producers to kind of give out information at that speed, but this is what the customers are demanding. And because of this, people don't really want to call people anymore. The phone is being used for everything else apart from making calls. So even things like customer service is being utilized by messenger chats. People rather chat to a customer service representative than call, and that's the true fact about it. And even messaging apps like WhatsApp is kind of becoming popular for sharing news rather than going to a news site. So we can see this growth of chat services getting further and further. And from an advertising point of view, we are kind of moving away from typically branded messages because people don't really have a passion towards branded messages. They feel like it's sponsored and it's paid for. And the fact is that people aged between 55 to 64 are twice as likely to click on content, branded content, than 28 or younger. And to kind of explain this point, I'll play like a 2-minute, 3-minute video. The reason why I'm playing this video is because it's one of my favorites. It's pretty old, but it's a perfect example of how a company kind of took what their purpose as a brand and kind of translated into this beautiful story and kind of ended it with their little product placement. And when you watch this video, you'll understand what I mean.
Come with me and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look and you'll see into your imagination. We'll begin with a spin, traveling in a world of my creation. What we'll see will defy explanation. If you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you want to, do it. Want to change the world, there's nothing to it. Compare with pure imagination. Living there, you'll be free if you truly wish to be. Simply look around and view it. Anything you want to, do it. Want to change the world, there's nothing to it.
So the idea behind this was Chipotle was trying to kind of give out this idea that organic, freshly made food is much better than the whole processed meat. And without saying that story directly, they kind of gave this beautiful story about how this guy felt bad about living in this systematic world of processed meats and processed things, and he kind of went out of it. So this video is about 3 minutes long, but it has about 50 million views. Conventional digital marketers would say, you know, the video has to be 2 minutes long, 1 minute long, but it's not really the case sometimes. It depends on how passionate or how compelling your story is. So that kind of brings me to this whole videos rule aspect. Almost 73% of all online traffic are videos. It's projected to go about 80%. Most of it which actually is about cats. For some reason, we have no idea why. But funny enough, I came across this guy. He's a YouTuber from South Korea who actually just live streamed himself studying. He didn't do anything, he just studied. And there were like hundreds and thousands of people just watching him study. And I have no explanation to this. And the only thing I could explain about this is that maybe people were anticipating something to happen, but this is a real life scenario. And he has millions of subscribers now just watching him study every day. That's, well, no idea. We have no idea how human behavior works, but that's an insight. And of course, we spoke about this VR, AR. So we are coming up with new ways of kind of consuming this video content, not just the typical YouTube videos you see every day. So if you take a look at a few stats, 4 in 5 millennials look at these YouTube reviews before they buy something. And these YouTube reviews are becoming very popular, and I can see a lot of Sri Lankans kind of getting onto it as well. There are 3 billion hours of videos watched every month, and that's crazy if you think about it. And live video performances are actually getting better results after they are offline. So people are actually utilizing these live videos a lot. Secondly, I just talk about ads. People don't really like ads. Well, not everything, but most of it, we are tired of ads. That's because ads are everywhere. Everywhere you look, you see banner ads and telling you to click here, click here, click here, and it's really getting annoying sometimes. So as advertisers, as brands, as publishers, we kind of have to rethink our way of approaching ads. So the traditional banner ads have kind of moved away, and we are kind of going into this native ad space. And if you think about it, according to AdBlocker, which is a very famous ad blocker, 2 in 5 people have kind of installed this ad blocker because they really don't want to see ads. User-initiated videos are becoming very popular, which means, you know, they ask you to watch a video for you to get something, get an access to something, or get more coins in a game. Those are becoming more popular. Programmatic, I believe my previous speaker kind of touched on that. And of course, native ads, and this native ads rule. And the reason why I keep talking about this native ads is because it feels seamless, it feels natural. It's a product placement, which is not really a product placement. And to explain this, this is a quick video about how Microsoft Surface was relaunched. Sorry. Up.
You might not remember us, but we met in the 90s. We are members of Generation Y, as in yin yang, yo-yo. Life moved a little slower. Disks were square, desktop folders had personality. Extra storage space was just a zipper away. There was only one social network, but most of your friends died of dysentery. The only thing buzzing in your pocket was a pet, until that died too. But at least the troll was still a friend. Lunch was a puzzle, not a picture. You were pumping jams, water, shoes. You didn't have to worry about a news feed full of farm animals. You were busy feeding wild animals. A haircut didn't cost $60. It cost 4 minutes. You really had nothing to lose. Unless, of course, you were playing for keeps. The future was bright. You grew up. So did we.
Another example of how brands kind of tell a little story before they kind of push a product to your face. So then this culture about let's make him money. I mean, I'm just touching on this because the internet culture has become so widespread that you can actually monetize it and make a lot of money. And case in point is this guy, PewDiePie. I'm not sure if you know this guy. He's the #1 YouTube channel in the world. He started off playing video games and people watching him play video games and reacting to it. That's all he did. He wasn't exactly the best gamer in the world, but he just had funny reactions and funny comments to make. And he has about 54 million subscribers. His net worth is about $20 million. So this is a guy who stays at home, plays video games, and just reacts to it. And if you watch his videos, it's pretty funny, actually. And with this kind of trend, a new thing was born, Twitch. And Twitch is very popular abroad, and it's kind of picking up here, I guess. Twitch is where you can kind of have your own channel for playing your games, and people can watch, and people can subscribe to you. And 43% of all live video streaming on the online space is actually Twitch. And there are 55 million users, and it's growing. And streamers can earn in multiple ways. You know, they can be subscribed to, you have merchandise, you have various ways. So there are a lot of platforms that are coming up for anyone with an interest to kind of express it and earn from it. That comes up to this point where we have so much content going around. There's like an overload of content. Back in 2011, we had about 27 million pieces of content a day. Now we're talking about 3.2 billion a month. And this number is actually a best guess scenario, to be honest. No one really in the world can say we know exactly how much content there is in a day. But there's so much content. Now the problem with this is, with this kind of enormous content amounts, we come up with things like fake news and, you know, false information. And it's very easy for people to just put out information there and just make it a reality. And that's actually happening in Sri Lanka as well as in the States, where you saw the last election, how much Trump was in trouble for spreading fake news and things like that. So there's a lot of content which is not true. And to kind of make that point, I will quote from two of my favorite role models in life. One is Abraham Lincoln, who said, "Don't believe everything you read on the internet just because there's a picture and with a quote next to it." And my second quote is from Einstein, who said, "I fear the day people post pictures, post memes actually, on the internet with quotes I never said." And this is the reality of the situation. You can just put a picture here and just put a quote and spread it around and everything becomes reality, but it's not. So let's look ahead to the future. What are we looking at? Typing words is too stressful. People do really getting tired of typing, and it's because of that these emoticons and emojis were born, and they're kind of going back to the cave drawings again, but the reality is that it's very easy to express yourself with a visual, and that's why this whole memes were born. Because end of the day, any of us can relate to these faces because it expresses an emotion. So I see a future where possibly, not, of course, not these faces, but we will come up to a neutral digital language where anybody can go into a website and understand what's going on without actually being able to read a language. So there might not be words, it will be visual. So we might come to a point where we'll have a neutral digital language in the future. And that's a possibility. And a lot of brands are kind of taking advantage of this as well. This was a commercial, this was actually a campaign done by Durex.
Everyone's doing it. Yep, using emojis. Like this. Or this. Oh, cheeky. And we all know what this is, of course. A sexy breakfast at a ferry terminal. So it's easy to suggest sex, but there are no emojis for safe sex. That makes us. Especially as it's around World AIDS Day. So we, that's Durex by the way, are asking all of you, yes, all of you, to help us get one of these made. An official condom emoji. Look at it. Just use the hashtag condom emoji as much as possible. So the clever people who create the official emojis will see just how much everyone wants one. And they'll make one of these beauties. So then you can ask that special someone in your life for a... with a... which protects you and them and, well, everybody. So let's get an official safe sex emoji on every single phone out there. Show your support by sharing this film and spreading our message using the hashtag condom emoji. Just make sure you send it to the right number, huh?
So that's the reality, because people are actually using this kind of things, but it's easy to communicate with visuals. We all can relate to it. Data wars. Now this is a bit more technical stuff, but all this content, all this information, there's no point without being able to communicate data. And we have 4G, 3G, and things like that. And what I want to talk about was some innovative data transmission methods we come up with. There's something called data over sound, which we are kind of currently working on right now, where people can transmit data over sound waves, which means in the future, a phone can communicate to another phone with just simply playing a track. And the fact is, your phone microphone is always on. So it's a very easy way to kind of communicate. So that's something new. And then we have PDSL, which is basically converting your electrical sockets at home into data lines, where they will actually start transmitting your data through your socket. So basically, you plug in your computer to a plug, and the data is already coming through it. You don't have LAN wires and Wi-Fi and things like that. And then we have something called Li-Fi, where light is being used to transmit data. And this is actually being tested. And so in the future, you're talking about going into a room with fluorescent lights or the traditional bulbs, which will kind of transmit data, and you just have to get under that light, and you have data. And this is something, again, which will revolutionize the way we transmit and use data. And something kind of scary is something called heat transmission data, which they have done experimentation. This is still at the very rudimentary stage, where computers you can actually find out what computers are doing by reading the heat signatures of a computer. So you don't really have to be connected to the computer, you just have to read the heat signature. They've, of course, done a very, very rudimentary test right now. They've published the results, but the scary part is that hackers could easily get into your computer just reading the heat signatures. So the future of data transmission, as much as it makes it efficient, there are some scary aspects to that as well, and that's where I guess cybersecurity and things will come into play. So what does this all mean? Faster connections, zero lag. I know the gamers out here would love zero lag, so hopefully one day we'll get there, but we will have free from restrictions. It'll be easy to kind of create your own little digital bubble, and that's what all these data transmission methods mean to us. Then we go into this social media being subject-specific. People are kind of moving away from the master of all social media. Case in point, Facebook. People are not really moving away from it, but the interest and the way they interact with it is kind of changing. Case in point, Instagram. When they came out, Instagram was known for a bunch of things, namely this. If you think about it, Instagram kind of made all these filters kind of popular, and the Instagram filter was like the main thing, because people love taking pictures and making it look good. But the insight here was that people love the whole photography aspect of it. And the interactions with Instagram was very simple. You like, you comment, that's it. You can comment, you can like, you can post a picture. Very simple actions, but it gives you a very niche solution that you're looking for. It's not for everything. So people are actually moving away from all these places like Facebook, millennials especially. A recent study shows that millennials are moving away from Facebook and into things like Instagram, which they feel is more private, which they feel they can control, and there's less clutter in it. And that's a very important thing for us. So in the future, we'll see subject-specific social media channels coming up. And even for a brand, if you take a look at this, is just a research that was done last year, where on Facebook versus Instagram, the red line represents a brand in terms of engagement. On Facebook, the engagement for a brand is way lower than Instagram. And to prove that, they actually posted the same content on Facebook as well as Instagram. And you can see there were like 17,000 interactions on Instagram, while there was about 1,500 interactions on Facebook. So people are actually engaging more with brands on Instagram. So that's a very keen insight. And Instagram is actually being used for a lot of advocacy. And the video I'm playing next kind of shows how Instagram can be used by different brands to kind of create a powerful message. This was a commercial that used Instagram to kind of showcase this addiction problem this lady has. But the whole idea behind it was that they created this profile with a very interesting girl, with an interesting lifestyle, but every picture she was in had a glass of wine or some alcohol beverage. And they used that and spun it around and showed how people can be addicted and no one really notices it. So again, Instagram can be used in various ways. And Instagram had a awesome insight. If you go to their website and if you go into their corporate site, they have this whole natural and unnatural pose. And that's why these long form videos were born, because people realized they hold the phone this way rather than that way. No one really bends the phone that way. You do once in a while when you're playing games, but they've realized it's easier to kind of use the phone this way, because most of us use the phone while we are on the move. We are in a bus, we are in a train, we are walking around, and we keep this phone upright. And because of this, the IGTV was born, the channel. And the key insight, I mean, the challenge for advertisers, publishers, content creators is now that we live in a world of 16 by 9. This screen is 16 by 9. And all of a sudden, we had to flip it around and make content that fits this format. So it's very interesting. Plus, we can do crazy kind of content around that. Then we come to the me culture. And this is one of the, I think, the biggest, I wouldn't say a problem, but one of the biggest outputs of the internet world. It's all about me. That whole me culture has been prevalent in the digital era. And no other time in the human history where people have been given such importance because of social media. Social media allows you to make your voice heard. You can say anything about anybody. You can tag Donald Trump and talk to him. You can do anything. So that me culture is very, very prevalent in digital. And brands kind of have taken advantage of this as well as kind of, supported it. And to show that case, this was something interesting done by the Australian Tourist Board. They kind of created the world's largest selfie. One more thing I want to talk about is this whole AI thing my previous speakers kind of spoke about. But in the future, I see where you have a digital assistant, a personal AI assistant for everything you do. That will remind you when to post something on social media, which will pick the best picture for you. It's already there on some of the Google features. But this hyper-personalization and AI will play a huge role in the connected world. And this is where we are finally coming into the AI connected semantic web. And the funny thing is, it also has a downside. This happened about 3 days ago in the British Parliament when a speaker was making a speech, an official parliamentary speech, and this happened.
This involves the clearance of desert areas, securing the Syria-Iraq border, and rooting out the remaining several hundred terrorists who remain in outposts in the Euphrates Valley and surrounding areas.
I found something on the web for in Syria. Syrian Democratic Forces supported by premonition.
What a very rum business that is.
An intervention. No, but I do apologise for that.
So basically,
it is very rare.
Was listening to the entire speech, which kind of brings up to a very important question. Is this phone always listening to us? So after this incident happened, there was a huge turmoil in the British government saying, should we be bringing phones into the parliament? Because this guy was talking about Syria, and Siri kind of heard about it and gave him an answer. So it's kind of funny. So just to conclude with, the norms of the digital communication, it's not really a set-in-stone kind of thing. There's no real rule book. You can't really create a rule book for something that is changing so fast. So there's only guidelines to the digital world. But anything can be broken. Social media will get more private because people are having issues with the privacy and the leak of data with the recent Cambridge issue and things like that. Automation will happen very much faster than what we expect. The next time Instagram will pick the best picture of you and ask you if you should post it. And all you have to say is yes, it'll apply the filter and get it done. So that's the future we are looking at. And fact-checking. Because of this prevalent amount of fake data and fake information, I believe in the future everything will have an embedded fact-checking system to see if you're actually posting the real thing or not. And everything will be interconnected, obviously. Your house, your phone, your dog perhaps, your car, everything else. And your digital credentials will be the key to everything. As my previous speaker said, people will Google you and kind of see who you are. So your digital credential, made up of social media, everything else, would be the sum of who you are. And I hope that was interesting. Have a good day. Thank you very much, Etisalat, for having me. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Charitha Vaidyaratne. So before we open the panel discussion, it's time to say a very big thank you to all these resource personnel joining with us to make Social Media Day Colombo quite a successful one. And to present them with a very special token of appreciation, we'd like to call upon on stage to do the honors Mr. Shalinda Halpe, Assistant Manager Digital Marketing and Communication at Etisalat. First to be rewarded, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Mr. Chandima Kure. And next in line, we have Dr. Chamila Aryananda. Unfortunately, we don't have with us Mr. Sohan Dharmaraj and Ms. Melissa Dharmadas, but we have with us Mr. Charita Vaidyaratna and Mr. Jeffrey Sulfa. Right, now it's time for the panel discussion. The panel discussion, the main subject area would be how to make your brands ready for the digital adoption. How to make your brands basically digital ready. So, to discuss about this matter with me on stage, would I call upon Mr. Riaz Rashid, Mr. Chandima Kure, Mr. Jeffrey Sulfa, and at the same time, Mr. Charita Vaidyaratna. Right, okay, we have only Mr. Riaz Rashid to introduce you to the audience. In fact, he's the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of Etisalat. Welcome, Mr. Rashid. So as we are kind of behind the scheduled time, I would like to first get into the questions. First, I'd like to ask from Mr. Rashid. Considering the changes taking place in the environment when it comes to all these new digital marvels, new developments, discoveries taking place, what are the challenges for the CXOs, especially to adapt them to the business environment?
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I think by the time I finish answering, it will be good afternoon. It's like this. Today, the world, not only the CXOs, even if somebody asks me what will happen to the telco industry, in 5 years, I personally will not know, because it's merging with everything. Whether you take the banking industry, whether you take the media, whether you take transactional services, things are merging. And whether we like it or not, we will have a very different world, as you saw, you know. Things are going to be very challenging. If I ask some of you all, why did you all come here? You know, everything that you saw here, you could have picked it up somewhere else, for sure. But still, people will have to, you know, engage, interact, you know, at least enjoy life. So as CXOs, one of the biggest challenge we have is what does the customer need? And how do we cater to that in that speed they want? You know, we were discussing about speed. Everything has to happen like last minute. And if something doesn't happen, you know, people don't have the patience. One classic example I have in life is the number of divorces in the world. You know, it's touching over 50% in some countries, which is nothing but very, very sad. So the challenge for CXOs is how do we manage the customer expectations in this world that is changing at a speed nobody wants to actually adapt to.
Now, you talk about, you know, even you can be at somewhere else and pick up the same details what we discuss here. Now, same thing with the banking systems. No matter how the banks strive to introduce all these digital bankings and like, you know, a little cubicle so that they can go in and do all these transactions, people still need that human touch. They want to come to the teller and talk to the teller and like, you know, get all these banking transactions going on. So, new set of skills, that is the call of the day, in fact. So, what we require at the moment will be totally different in years to come. So, how can organizations groom their human resources to, you know, get into this real stream of digitalization? Would like to pose this question to the Chief Digital Officer, AMAS, Mr. Chandibukure.
Thanks. So as we look at this digital, and I think our eyes kind of go to the technology side of things, I think that's not the important part. I think it's more about the behaviors that this whole technology invasion into our lives have caused us. So this has nothing to do with the corporates or companies, brands. As consumers, all of us have changed our behaviors. So from a corporate setting, it's about staying relevant to this environment that we live in. So from a digital perspective, what we look at is, I mean, we have these two edges now. You have the external edge where you have to interact with all these external stakeholders, from your consumers to your suppliers to all the other people, and the inner edge, which is your own employees who are used to a certain set of behaviors. So if you look at evolution of HR itself, many years ago, we depend on HR to do everything around HR. And I think over time, we said, no, if you are a manager, if you're a team lead, you need to understand what this HR means, what talent manager means, and you need to be the HR manager, and HR is there to facilitate. So I think the digital and technology is similar. You can't leave it to IT or the technology folks. Today, if you're a CEO, if you're heading a business, if you're the head of supply chain, you still need to understand what technology can do for you, how your consumers are using it, how your suppliers are using it, what are the new behaviors that you need to stay relevant. So I think there are different ways to do this. Companies like McKinsey's, I mean, they have different maturity models. So you can look at that. What we are doing internally is to see how we can bring digital as a competency. So just like innovation, entrepreneurship, execution excellence, some measure around digital, so that whatever the level that a person may be, I mean, that's a skill that you need to have today.
Right. So from the organization perspective to a more individual perspective. And then Mr. Jeffrey Sulfa, would like to ask from you. Now, with these new discoveries, new technological tools coming into fore, now, for an organization, get into partnerships for the mergers. Those days, the size of the organization mattered most, in fact, like the scale of the organization. But how would you assess the scale of an organization in this new perspective, in this new environment?
Well, I think, so today, so WhatsApp was valued $16 billion with 12 people. So this is all turned around, right? So you had, those days manufacturing was one of the largest industries. We had big brands like Coca-Cola being right on the top. And then today, if you look at all the largest companies, there isn't any traditional companies there. It's all tech-based companies. We have Apple right on the top. Amazon has now been the next company to hit $1 trillion. So there's a lot of new changes that are happening now. And today, it's not essentially the number of people, and essentially it's the innovation that goes into companies that makes them bigger now. So I would think innovation is the reason.
The set of new ideas.
That's right.
And the implementation of them.
Exactly.
And the applicability as well.
Yes, to an extent, yes.
Right. Mr. Vaidyaratna, now we know that, especially you head the digital part of Shift. We know that there are brands which have been built from the scratch on digital platforms. How sustainable it is for brands to rely only on these digital platforms?
Okay, I think okay, there are two parts to that question, but to be honest, it doesn't matter what platform you are on. I think for a brand, the biggest thing is to have a purpose. If a brand doesn't have a purpose, a true purpose, it doesn't really leverage anywhere. It doesn't matter what platform you're on, digital, print, it doesn't matter. So for a brand to be sustainable, I think the brand has to be true to itself, and I think it has to have a purpose bigger than its product, something greater than itself, and that is what would carry a brand, no matter what it is. So the platform actually doesn't really matter anymore. It's more about a brand being true to itself, and people kind of can see through brands like that right now. They believe they see brand and they understand its purpose and kind of get attracted to that, not just the product. So I believe that brand purpose is the key that will sustain a brand in the digital era.
Not the platform that it has been built on.
It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. If you give a footballer an orange, he will play football with it. It doesn't matter what your tool is. If you're good at something, you'll do it no matter where you are. So same thing with brands. If it's just Facebook, you can do anything with Facebook. If it's just a website, but I believe a brand's purpose is the greatest thing that a brand should have.
So as long as you can get the purpose communicated to the right audience,
that's
rest
pretty much
assured.
it, yeah.
Right, okay, so we can give some opportunities for our members, the audience. We have like 10 minutes to entertain your questions. So if we can ask direct, quite concise, like, to the point questions, we can entertain them here.
You all rarely get an opportunity like this to speak to these guys, so use it. This is probably what you should gain. The world is going the AI way, the bot way, you like it or not. So get your chance and use your opportunities to just, put your future down.
Yes.
So I have a quick question directed to both Mr. Zulfa and Mr. Vaidyaratna. You all are both in fields that are very competitive. And there are lots of different, like for example, if it's SpeakMe, there are different other platforms that does the same thing. And if you're in an agency or you're doing a digital agency, there are so many different entities that are doing the same thing. And with digital being where it is at the moment, it is very easy for people to get on there and kind of tell people, okay, this is what we do. So how do you stay ahead of the game? How do you differentiate yourself from the other people who are doing the same thing? So.
Yeah, we can start from you.
Okay. All right. Okay. So that's a good question, right? How does SpeakMe stay ahead? I think we were very fortunate that we started first. So the first mover advantage was a natural advantage that we had. But then secondly, you can't just relax on this, right? The thing about technology is that it's evolving so fast that you cannot relax, right? We are not a beverage company. We are not a food company. You have your formula. You cannot say, I've done my formula and I can now relax. So technology-based companies have to innovate all the time. And if we don't innovate, we just die. So innovation is second, right? And then we just need to be ahead of the curve, right? We need to do everything possible that can put us ahead of everyone else. So that's the game plan, right? For us, it's all about that, and hopefully that will get us across some of the competition that we are seeing now.
I think he doesn't want to share the little, the mantras, Mr. Vaidyaratna.
From an agency point of view, I think the biggest thing would be understanding the consumer, the behavior of consumers. And as you so rightly said, the behavior is what matters end of the day. So the more we understand how people react with technology, people react with brands, that understanding is what kind of keeps us ahead. And the second part is, of course, investing in the right resources, the human resources. Because no matter how much AI there is, there are agencies abroad that actually has AI-powered creative directors who are actually AI. And it might work to an extent, but then we believe getting the right resources and training them the right way kind of gives the decisive advantage, I would say.
I have a question to Mr. Rashid. Now, you as a telco operator, talk about the quality, the speeds, and the crystal clear voice, video, so much, the quality factors. But me as a consumer, when I use something high quality, I have to pay a higher price, a premium price. So how are you going to match up with this? Because for me, watching a video on just a smartphone, normal quality is more than enough. I don't want to have 4K. How would you address this?
Okay, if you look at us as telcos, one of the biggest challenges we have is this OTA players. These guys actually use our backbone at no return to us, whether you take the Facebook, the Viber, the WhatsApp, anybody. So, however, we need to provide the service to the consumer, and the consumer demands that service. So, whether we like it or not, we have to continue to invest. And that is one reason world over telcos are facing a big challenge in terms of return on investment. And unless the telcos evolve at a speed which they can recoup their money, you could see a blip world over.
So it's a challenging
It
situation.
is a challenging situation because people want the fastest speed and they are not willing to pay the price. And if the speed drops, you have enough complaints to your call center.
Questions? Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
This is directed to Jeffrey.
If you can speak a bit louder.
Yeah, this is directed to Jeffrey.
Right.
So basically, I want to know how you all use big data and its importance in today's world in your organization and in general, how important is big data and what kind of a role it plays?
I think, yeah, certainly. I mean, they say big data is the next oil, right? So, so data is very big, right? And as we keep collecting these data, there's so much of data mining that we can do. Chandima talked about in his presentation. But the future is on data, right? And I think we as a company are trying to utilize, essentially people's, essentially the data that we are collecting to better serve customers, right? So we're trying to provide a better experience. If you open our app today, you'd see what we call common places, right? We are trying to push people because of the traffic situations in Colombo and all that. We know where the most convenient places people are getting on board on our taxis. And that recommendation is now flowing into your mobile apps, right? So now we're trying to use that to give a better customer experience. So I think as we go along, you'll see a lot more other new things coming out through big data and essentially AI as well.
Would like to know, do you trace customer behavior, like, where they travel most and like,
Yeah. So we don't do it like Cambridge Analytica, but what we try to do is, for us, like I said, it's all about customer experience, right? When we say customer experience, we're talking about drivers as well as passengers like you all, right? Finally, it's about how do we ensure that you have a great ride on our platform. So it's a very generic way. We are a responsible company, right? Our data is in a protected environment, and we obviously don't want them to be used for the wrong things. So as a responsible company, we can assure you that the data that we collect are used in a proper way.
Right. We can entertain 2 more questions. Can we give the opportunity over here, please? Behind. Yes.
Hi. This is for Mr. Vaidyaratna. You pointed out, you touched on fake news. Given the fact that it's going on social media, I figured it might be relevant. Given the prevalence of fake news, not just in Sri Lanka but America, in your opinion, do you feel that there are any platforms which we can turn to, or do you feel that it might take a little while to build certain platforms or something which we normal people could do? Because, for example, when you come across something which doesn't quite add up, most people might go on to Hoaxslayer or Snopes.com. But purely from your perspective, do you see something which might help us combat fake news?
I think the quick answer is there's no real quick fix to this right now. There's no one site where you can go and put a piece of information and find out if it's really true or not. I can tell you a scientific method of approaching this. If you see a news, you find 5-6 references to it and do your research. That's the tried and tested scientific method of finding out if something is real or not. So that would be my best guess. So whenever I actually come across like all these facts on Facebook, friends of mine post, 3 out of 5 people do this and that, I always just go back and check and find out from other resources. So the best way for you to find out information, if it's true or not, would be to kind of check different resources and see if they kind of tally up. But in the US, I believe there's a Politico fact-check website which you can put in a speech from any president or whatever, and they kind of tell you if the statistics are correct or not. But I don't think there's one go-to place right now where you can kind of, yeah.
Right. One more question. You had a question.
I have a question for Mr. Chandima. So as a large conglomerate in Sri Lanka, something that I have noticed kind of is that the larger the companies, it's kind of harder for them to adapt to the new trends, right? Because of all the red tape and the bureaucracy and all that. So as a large and household name, Hemaz, how have you all kind of combat this problem? How do you combat the problem when your company is very large, but you also have to quickly respond and be kind of very responsive to what is going on? So how does Hemaz deal with a situation like that?
Sure. So the problem is real. I think we started kind of talking about innovation, digital, I think for the last probably 3.5 years. And I think the progress has been slow. And I think the challenges are real as well. I mean, somebody churns out, billion rupees a month kind of a turnover. It's a complex environment. You need to stay focused around it. And then we go and say, okay, now there's something called online. You have to create another channel which conflicts with everything that you do today. You'll probably annoy your distributors, retailers, but go ahead and do it. It doesn't really happen that way. So what we are doing is we take a two-pronged approach. So from a digital perspective, we have two agendas. So one is called digital for business. So these are things that our businesses can embrace in the current settings, current context, to enhance maybe the customer experience, create better bridges with the consumers, etc. And these are safe, incremental things that we still need to do to deliver better product and service. Then we also have something called digital as a business, where fundamentally we are changing kind of the norms of the game that we may be in. But we actually do that outside of our core business. So that's why we have this entity called Concept Ventures and a program called Slingshot. So we kind of talk to universities, different teams, startups, and we have the mandate to invest in existing startups who are doing something related to our industries, not necessarily exact fit, but kind of adjacent to that. Or internal ideas that sometimes fall off the table because management doesn't really have the bandwidth to execute, to fund that in a startup model. So, I mean, what Dr. Chamila leads, Ivo.life, is an internal idea. I mean, this is something that we have been talking about, wellness as a service, kind of a concept, for years, but we couldn't really get it out within our healthcare established hospital business. So we said, okay, let's take it out and then run it in a very different dynamics because the dynamics are very different. So hospitals, you have invested so much on the buildings, the equipment have a life of about 4 to 5 years. After that, doctors don't want to use it because there's newer technology. So it's about how you drive utilization around that. Whereas in a real digital world, I mean, it's about actually putting the user first and trying to see, okay, what are his needs? And it may be like we can't, as Hemaz, satisfy all those needs. It's about partnering with other hospitals, and that's the approach that we take within Ivo.life. We have partnerships with RCD, Durdens, multiple insurance companies, multiple personal care product companies, because we really put the user at the same time, try to see. So different mindsets. So I mean, but at the same time, what we're saying is maybe in 2 years, 3 years, when these grow, flourish, maybe that will be how we do the business in the future, or there could be a natural fit. So we approach it that way.
All right, thank you very much. So at the end of the day, what we need to understand, realize is that tools are for businesses and businesses are not for tools. All right, so thank you very much, gentlemen, sharing your time with us. Shall we all put our hands together, give these gentlemen also a big round of applause? Come on. So with that, it's time to wrap up the formalities here at the Social Media Day Colombo 2018, proudly hosted by Etisalat. Right, before we wrap up and say a very big thank you to certain individuals, teams, organizations who made a tremendous contribution towards the grand success what we all enjoyed here at this gathering, let's take a look at a special video. much, Etisalat. Power to you. Ladies and gentlemen, to propose the vote of thanks in wrapping up the formalities, would like to call upon once more Mr. Shalind Halpe.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much. First of all, I'll make sure that I keep things short. We talked about the digital platforms and how it has now redefined the way that we experience life. And the speakers here who spoke to you today during this conference are people who were instrumental in changing the way that we have experienced certain things in our everyday digital life, from the way we transport, like we use transport, from the way we experience food, and the way we experience healthcare now. So they were the people instrumental themselves in making these revolutions in these technologies. So I would like to thank them individually, from Melissa, Jeffrey, Dr. Shamila, Ms. Chandima, Sohan, Charita, and Vitas, who joined us from Lithuania via Skype call. Thank you very much for being a part of this event and sharing your experiences and your knowledge with us to help us grow and help us be a part of this digital revolution as well. And furthermore, I'd like to thank the Etisalat Senior Management, our CEO, our DCEO, Mr. Riaz, who is here with us today, the CFO and the CTIO for their guidance and their support in making this event a success. Further, I'd like to thank Dushan Vas, who did a really great job in taking us through the event. Thank you very much, Dushan. And of course, I would be failing at my thanks if I didn't thank the Etisalat marketing team, as well as the rest of the Etisalat staff, as well as the Shift team. I think Charita would agree that I would be one of the reasons why he is pulling his hair out most of the time. So, and the event management team as well, to making sure that this conference went on smoothly. And finally, of course, I'd like to thank everyone here in attendance, because at the end of the day, we were here to gain something for ourselves in terms of our role in the digital revolution of the world. So I hope you found this conference insightful and useful for you to understand your role in the digital revolution, as well as help you get ideas, or like Sohan said earlier, understand your opportunities in making yourself a part of the future. So thank you all. We'll be around, so feel free to talk to us and just discuss what your ideas are about the conference, and we'll see you around, and let's hope for a bigger and better social media day next year. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Mr. Shalind Halpe. So thank you very much on behalf of Etisalat, gracing this occasion. And in wrapping up, would like to invite all of you to enjoy the refreshments being served at the back of the banquet. You can see almost all of you are refreshed, but still we have more refreshments. Let's start enjoying. Thank you very much, everyone.